At our family Thanksgiving dinner in our warm home in Columbus, Ohio, my son Alexander looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You are here because this is your house, but that does not mean you are welcome here anymore." Those words struck me like a sledgehammer to the chest. After 40 years of building this family, this home, this life with my own hands, I was being thrown away like worthless garbage. What broke my heart even more was watching my wife Eleanor sit in complete silence, refusing to defend me when I needed her voice the most. They thought they were dealing with a broken, isolated old man who had nowhere to turn. They had no idea what was coming next. Before I tell you what happened afterward, please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below, and let me know where you are listening to this story from. Because what my family did to me that Thanksgiving night might be happening to someone in your neighborhood right now. The rich smell of herb-roasted turkey and sage stuffing filled our home as I finished preparing what would become the most devastating Thanksgiving of my 70 years. I had been up since 5 in the morning, just like I had for 40 straight years, cooking every dish myself, the perfectly seasoned bird, fluffy whipped potatoes, and the green bean casserole that had become our sacred family tradition. Alexander arrived with Sophia as daylight faded over the Columbus suburbs. My 38-year-old son walked through the front door with stiff shoulders, deep worry lines carving his forehead. His wife followed, her manicured fingers already scrolling on her phone. At 35, Sophia carried herself with the polished confidence of Columbus's cutthroat real estate market. But that night, her usual charm felt mechanical, rehearsed. "Everything looks wonderful." "Robert," Eleanor said, though her voice trembled just a little. My wife seemed unusually nervous as we settled around the dining table. I carved the turkey with the same methodical precision I had used for decades. Conversation started normally, but tension crackled beneath every word like static before a storm. "Alexander, how is the consulting business?" I asked, reaching for the gravy boat. "You mentioned some new clients the last time we talked." "Dad, do not worry about it," Alexander replied curtly, not looking up from his plate. "I am just interested. Seriously. It is fine. You do not need to keep track of everything I do." The sharpness in his tone caught me off guard. I was not keeping track. I was making conversation. Sophia looked up from her phone. "Robert, maybe Alexander does not want to discuss work during family dinner. Since when is asking about my son's career inappropriate?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Since it becomes constant questioning," Alexander muttered under his breath. "Constant questioning." "Son," I pressed, still trying to understand. "I asked one question." Alexander set down his fork with a deliberate clink that echoed in the quiet room. When he finally looked up, his eyes held a coldness I had never seen before. "Dad," he said with a flat, rehearsed tone, "you are here because this is your house, but that does not mean you are welcome here anymore." The words struck me like a physical blow. My chest tightened as I struggled to process what I had just heard. "What did you say?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You heard me," Alexander continued, never breaking eye contact. "Things need to change. We cannot keep pretending everything is normal when it is not." "What is not normal?" I asked. "About your job." "It is not just that, Dad. It is everything. The constant prying, the way you insert yourself into every conversation, the way you make everyone uncomfortable. Make everyone uncomfortable." My voice rose slightly in disbelief. "This is Thanksgiving dinner. I am trying to talk to my family. See, you cannot even accept feedback without getting defensive and loud," Sophia interjected with practiced patience. "This is exactly what Alexander and I have been discussing." I turned to Eleanor, expecting her to defend me, to tell them they were being cruel and ridiculous. Instead, she stared at her untouched plate, hands folded tightly in her lap, saying nothing at all. "You are always questioning, always needing to control every situation," Alexander added, his voice growing harder. It is exhausting to be around. Control, I repeated, stunned. I asked one question about your business, and there it is again. You cannot hear yourself, Sophia said, shaking her head slowly. You are being argumentative right now, proving our point. It is not personal. Robert, she continued with that practiced sympathy, we just need some space, some boundaries, until you can work on being less overwhelming. The room spun as I tried to understand how our cherished family tradition had become an ambush, how asking about Alexander's work had escalated into a full character assassination. Alexander and Courtney left immediately after that, barely touching Eleanor's homemade pumpkin pie. They mumbled excuses about early meetings the next day, but their hurried departure felt like an escape after a successful mission. I sat staring at the half-eaten feast, the food now cold and congealing on the plates. Eleanor moved like a ghost, clearing dishes in mechanical silence, avoiding my eyes as she scraped leftovers into containers. That is when I realized this had not been spontaneous. The careful timing, Sophia's prepared remarks, Eleanor's guilty silence. Everything pointed to coordination and planning. But as I watched my wife's hands shake while handling our good china, I could not tell whether those tremors came from guilt over betraying me or fear of what might come next. Sleep refused to come that night. I lay staring at the ceiling, replaying every word from dinner, every gesture that had passed between Alexander, Sophia, and Eleanor. The digital clock mocked me, ticking past 2 in the morning, then 3, then 4, as my mind churned through possibilities I did not want to consider. Finally giving up, I made my way to my study, the same room where I had built my manufacturing business from the ground up. This desk had seen me through contract negotiations and strategic planning that turned a small Columbus factory into a regional powerhouse. If I could navigate corporate warfare, surely I could figure out what was happening in my own family. But something about Alexander's words kept nagging at me. That devastating line about not being welcome. It had not sounded spontaneous. There was a rehearsed quality, like he had practiced the phrasing in a mirror, and Sophia's responses had been too smooth, too prepared, like lines delivered by an actress. In business, I had learned to recognize when someone was reading from a script. What had I actually done wrong? I had asked about his consulting business. A normal parental question. Where was the controlling behavior they had accused me of? The more I analyzed the evening, the more it felt like I had walked into a trap. Morning brought no clarity, only Eleanor moving around the kitchen with unusual urgency. I found her clutching a coffee mug, eyes red-rimmed and avoiding mine. Eleanor, we need to talk about last night. Her shoulders sagged. Robert, what the hell just happened at our dinner table? She started crying then, quiet tears from somewhere deep and painful. Alexander has been calling me for weeks, almost every day when you go for your morning walks. My chest tightened. Calling about what? About me. She whispered finally, meeting my eyes. He says you are losing your mental sharpness, making poor financial decisions. He keeps telling me we need to protect you from yourself. What poor financial decisions? The investment account you opened last month. He said it was risky for your age. The way you have been reorganizing files, moving things around. He said those were warning signs. I stared at her in disbelief. The investment account was a conservative municipal bond fund. The file reorganization was because I had bought a new filing cabinet. Eleanor, those are not warning signs of anything except normal life management. I know. But Alexander sounded so concerned, so knowledgeable. He kept saying, Mom, we cannot wait until it is too late. We have to act while Dad can still understand what is best for him. The manipulation was breathtaking. Alexander had been systematically undermining my credibility with my own wife, turning everyday activities into evidence of decline. And you believed him, I did not want to. But he is our son, Robert. He is a financial consultant. I thought maybe he could see things I could not. I felt so torn between you and him. Classic divide and conquer strategy. Make Eleanor doubt her judgment. Position himself as the expert. Create a crisis requiring immediate action. I had seen similar tactics in corporate boardrooms. Eleanor, look at me. Do I seem mentally impaired right now? In this conversation, do I sound confused or incompetent? She shook her head slowly. No, you sound exactly like yourself. Sharp and analytical, just like always. That is when I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to approach this like any business crisis. Gather intelligence. Identify the real players. Understand their motivations. Develop a counter-strategy. I spent the morning systematically reviewing the recent months, checking my calendar against memory. Alexander's visits had increased in frequency, and Eleanor had found excuses to give us privacy during each one. What had seemed like thoughtful behavior now looked like orchestrated opportunity. Then I went to check the mail and discovered our monthly bank statement was missing. I always kept financial documents meticulously organized in the same filing system I had used for decades. Every statement, every investment summary had its place. But as I searched through the files, a cold realization settled over me. Someone had been going through my personal papers, and they had been careful enough to cover their tracks. Almost. The next morning, I approached my filing cabinet like a crime scene investigator. What I had initially dismissed as a missing bank statement turned out to be the tip of an iceberg that chilled me to the bone. 4 months' worth of bank statements had vanished entirely. Insurance policies and property deeds showed subtle signs of photocopying. Slight misalignments and paper texture changes that only someone with my obsessive organizational habits would notice. The timeline was damning. Every missing document corresponded exactly with Alexander's increased visits to our house. When I confronted Eleanor about the missing papers, she seemed genuinely confused. Robert, I never touch your files. You know how particular you are about your system. Her bewilderment appeared authentic, which meant someone else had been systematically harvesting my financial information while she remained oblivious. I needed professional confirmation of what I suspected. So I drove to Central Ohio Bank to meet with Thomas Riley, a man I had done business with for 18 years. Thomas's discomfort was obvious the moment I mentioned potential unauthorized access to my accounts. Robert, he said, loosening his tie, I probably should not be telling you this, but someone did request information about your accounts last month. They had what appeared to be a valid power of attorney document. My blood pressure spiked. I never signed any power of attorney. The signature matched our records perfectly. We ran it through our verification system twice. Thomas pulled up the digital file on his computer. The inquiry was specifically about account balances and asset valuations, not transaction history, just current worth. Who made the request? Your son Alexander, accompanied by a woman. Not your daughter-in-law, though. Someone we did not recognize. Brunette. Professional look. Carried herself like a lawyer or real estate agent. The pieces were falling into place with terrifying clarity. Alexander had not been acting alone, and this mysterious woman suggested a level of premeditation that went far beyond family concern. Thomas, I need copies of everything related to that inquiry, and I need you to flag my accounts for any future access attempts already done. Robert, something felt off about the whole interaction. My next call was to Laura Bennett, our family attorney for the past 12 years. Laura's revelation hit me like a sledgehammer. Robert, someone called my office 3 weeks ago asking detailed questions about your will and estate planning. The caller claimed to be a family representative concerned about your capacity to make sound financial decisions. What did you tell them? Nothing, of course. I explained that I could not discuss your affairs without your explicit consent. but they were persistent, asking about procedures for updating beneficiaries and the timeline for probate proceedings. The audacity was breathtaking. They were not just planning to take control of my assets. They were researching what would happen after I died. Laura, I need you to run a check on something else. Has anyone been consulting with elder law attorneys about guardianship procedures for someone matching my profile 30 minutes later? Laura called back with information that made my hands shake. Robert, I contacted my colleague Daniels, who specializes in guardianship law. He confirms that someone matching Alexander's description consulted with him about initiating proceedings for an elderly parent with declining judgment and increasing financial vulnerability. The systematic nature of their campaign was becoming undeniable. Forged power of attorney documents to access my financial information. Legal consultations about stripping away my autonomy. Missing financial records that would be crucial evidence of my competency. This was not spontaneous concern from a loving family. This was a carefully orchestrated assault on my independence. I sat in my car outside Laura's office trying to process the magnitude of what I had uncovered. 4 months of methodical preparation, professional assistance from unknown accomplices, legal research into the most efficient ways to declare me incompetent. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. Searching through Eleanor's purse for aspirin that evening, something I had done countless times during our marriage, I found an appointment card that stopped my heart cold. Dr. Harold Klein, geriatric specialist, scheduled for the following week. An appointment I had never made for an evaluation I had never requested with a doctor I had never heard of. The trap was closing around me, and I was running out of time. The first thing I did the next morning was call Dr. Harold Klein's office. The receptionist's cheerful voice confirmed my worst suspicions. Oh yes, Mr. Harlan. Your appointment is scheduled for Tuesday at 11 for a cognitive assessment. Your daughter-in-law Sophia was so thoughtful to arrange this, mentioning her concerns about your recent memory issues I did not have, arranged by someone with no legal right to schedule my medical evaluations. I am calling to cancel that appointment. I never requested any cognitive assessment. But sir, Mrs. Harlan explained that you had been having episodes of confusion. There are no episodes of confusion, and I am canceling immediately. This was not just family manipulation anymore. Someone was building a medical case for my incompetency using fabricated symptoms. I needed professional help to understand what I was facing. Victor Ramos came recommended through my manufacturing network, a former FBI agent specializing in financial crimes. When I explained the situation in his downtown Columbus office, his expression grew grim. Mr. Harlan, what you are describing fits a pattern I have seen in elder financial abuse cases. Let me run a comprehensive background check on your daughter-in-law. 4 days later, Ramos called with information that left me speechless. Robert, Sophia owes $300,000 from a failed commercial real estate investment. She borrowed from private lenders, not banks, which means higher interest rates and aggressive collection methods. My hands gripped the phone tighter. Does Alexander know nothing? She has hidden the entire crisis from him. The investment failed 20 months ago, but she's been covering it up ever since. Payments are due February 15th. Which explains the Thanksgiving urgency. That timeline hit me hard. 20 months ago, Alexander and Sophia had just celebrated their 3rd wedding anniversary. She had been lying to my son about her financial situation for most of their marriage. Her current real estate income barely covers basic expenses, Ramos continued. She has been juggling minimum payments and dodging creditor calls. Robert, this woman is desperate. But Ramos was not finished. There is more disturbing news. I found records showing Sophia worked with elderly clients in Tucson, Arizona before coming to Columbus 5 years ago. Multiple complaints were filed with the State Real Estate Board. 5 years. She had been in Columbus for 5 years, which meant she had spent 3 years establishing herself in our community, gaining our trust before marrying Alexander. The calculation was chilling. What kind of complaints, I asked. Elderly homeowners reported that Sophia obtained copies of their bank statements, insurance policies, and property valuations without permission. She claimed it was for market analysis, but clients felt she was overstepping boundaries. The Arizona Real Estate Commission opened an investigation. What happened? She left the state suddenly, right before the investigation concluded, moved to Columbus, changed her references, started fresh. Some references I called do not even remember her. Now I understood why Alexander had met her so soon after she arrived in Columbus. She had been looking for a new identity, a fresh start, and my successful son had been the perfect cover story. Ramos, how long has she been planning this operation against me? 8 months. Robert, I found evidence Sophia has been researching Ohio guardianship laws since early spring, long before Alexander knew about your supposed mental decline. She downloaded legal forms, researched precedent cases, even contacted elder law attorneys. The timeline was becoming crystal clear. Sophia had spent 3 years building credibility in Columbus, 3 years married to Alexander, gaining access to our family, and 8 months systematically planning to destroy my independence. She is not opportunistic, Ramos concluded. She is a professional predator who targets elderly people and their families. She came to Columbus specifically to reinvent herself, and marrying Alexander gave her the perfect cover. As I hung up, I realized my son had been manipulated from the very beginning. Sophia had not fallen in love with Alexander. She had selected him as her pathway into a financially stable family with vulnerable elderly parents. The question now was whether I could save Alexander before Sophia's desperation drove her to even more extreme measures. Armed with Ramos's devastating report, I knew I needed legal armor. My first call was to Daniel Brooks, an attorney specializing in elder abuse prevention. Mr. Harlan, what you are facing is a sophisticated financial predator. We need multiple layers of protection immediately. Within 72 hours, Brooks arranged a comprehensive mental competency evaluation with Dr. Elaine Foster. The 4-hour assessment covered memory recall to complex problem solving. The results were unequivocal. Robert, your cognitive function scores significantly above average for your age group. Dr. Foster explained. You show no signs of dementia or impaired judgment. Any court would recognize your complete mental competency. Brooks used those results to file preemptive legal motions preventing guardianship abuse. We are creating an irrevocable trust structure, making it virtually impossible for anyone to access your assets even with a temporary guardianship order. I implemented digital fortress protocols, changing every password, adding 2-factor authentication, creating detailed documentation of daily activities. Every conversation with Ramos, every legal consultation was meticulously recorded. But the most crucial discovery was unplanned. While installing a security camera system Brooks had recommended, I found a small recording device hidden behind our kitchen toaster. Had Alexander planted surveillance in my own home when Eleanor returned from book club that evening? I confronted her. Eleanor, what is this? I demanded, holding up the tiny recorder. Instead of guilty denial, she smiled, actually smiled for the first time in weeks. Robert, she said, settling into her chair. I have been married to you for 45 years. Did you really think I would betray you? The world tilted. What are you talking about? I have been recording Alexander's phone calls for a month. Every manipulative conversation, every coaching session with Sophia, every lie about your mental state. My mouth fell open. You have been what Eleanor returned with a digital recorder and notebook filled with dates and times. Listen to this, Alexander's voice filled our living room. Mom, you have to stick to the script. When Dad asks questions, seem worried about his memory, Sophia says. It is crucial you appear concerned about his decision-making. Then Sophia's voice, sharp and calculating. Eleanor, this only works if Robert thinks he is losing you, too. You have to seem conflicted, forced to choose sides. I stared at Eleanor in amazement. How long have you known since the third phone call? Alexander sounded wrong, rehearsed, like someone was feeding him lines. So I started recording everything. I have hours of evidence. Robert, Sophia coaching Alexander, discussing asset seizure timelines, even laughing about fooling the old man. The relief was overwhelming. My wife had been playing confused, manipulated spouse while secretly gathering evidence to destroy their conspiracy. Why did you not tell me sooner? Because I needed them to think it was working. If they suspected I was onto them, they might have changed tactics or disappeared. This way, we have everything on tape. We spent an hour listening to recordings documenting the entire conspiracy. Sophia's desperation about debts, Alexander's growing discomfort with deception, fake medical appointments, forged documents, even discussions about what to do if I became suspicious. Eleanor, you have been conducting your own investigation this whole time. 45 years of marriage taught me strategy, too, she said with a wry smile. The recordings revealed Sophia's manipulation in devastating detail. Her coaching Alexander on emotional pressure tactics, her research into Ohio guardianship laws, her timeline for liquidating my assets, even her backup plans if I proved more difficult than expected. Most chilling was a conversation where Sophia discussed the corrupt doctor she had found. Someone willing to sign competency evaluations without proper examination for the right price. Eleanor, I said, taking her hands. You saved us. We are not done yet, she replied. Sophia scheduled another medical evaluation for you next week with a different doctor. One she claims will be more understanding of the family's concerns. As we planned our next moves together, I realized the tables had completely turned. Sophia and Alexander thought they were closing in on a confused old man and his manipulated wife. Instead, they were walking into an ambush, orchestrated by two people they had underestimated entirely. The trap was set, and we held all the cards. Eleanor proved to be a natural actress. The next morning, she called Alexander with panic in her voice. Alexander, I am worried about your father. He is asking strange questions, acting suspicious. He keeps asking about phone calls and medical appointments I do not know anything about. I could hear Alexander's sharp breath through the phone. What kind of questions? He wanted to know if anyone had been through his files. He seemed confused about missing bank statements. Alexander, I think he is getting paranoid. I will be right over. Keep him calm until I get there. We had positioned recording equipment throughout the living room, hidden behind picture frames. This conversation would be documented from multiple angles. Alexander arrived within an hour, looking haggard and desperate. His appearance was disheveled, wrinkled shirt, unshaven face, the look of a man who had not slept in days. Mom, where is Dad? Right here, son, I said, entering with coffee, playing the slightly confused elderly man. Alexander, Eleanor said you wanted to talk. Dad, Mom mentioned you have been asking questions. I think maybe you're getting mixed up about some details. I sat down heavily, adopting a puzzled expression. Mixed up, I just noticed some papers missing. Bank statements, insurance documents. Do you know anything about that? Alexander's eyes darted to Eleanor, who nodded encouragingly. Dad, Sometimes when people get older, they misplace things and do not remember. But I am very organized with my files. I know. But Sophia and I have been worried about some decisions you have been making. The way you have been handling finances. Things you have said. I leaned forward. Confused. What things? What is wrong with my finances? That is when the dam broke. Alexander, thinking he was talking to someone whose memory could not be trusted, began revealing everything. Dad, you signed some documents a few weeks ago, a power of attorney giving me access to help manage your accounts. You probably do not remember, but you were having trouble understanding the paperwork. I signed a power of attorney. Sophia showed me how to. She helped me make sure your signature was correct, because your handwriting has been shaky. Eleanor gasped softly. Alexander, what are you saying, Mom? We are trying to protect him. The guardianship petition will be filed next week. Then we can manage Dad's assets properly. Everything will be liquidated by March. Guardianship petition, I repeated, as if hearing it for the first time. Alexander's voice cracked with emotion. Dad, I know this sounds terrible, but Sophia says it is the only way to protect you from yourself. You have been making poor decisions, getting confused about money. We cannot wait until something catastrophic happens. The manipulation was heartbreaking. My son genuinely believed he was saving me. Alexander, do I seem confused right now? In this conversation, he looked uncertain. Well, no. But Sophia says people with your condition have good days and bad days. Today might be a good day. That is when I made my move. Son, what if I told you Sophia owes $300,000 to private lenders? What if she has been lying about her business success? Color drained from Alexander's face. That is impossible. Her real estate business is thriving. She just closed 4 major deals. I showed him Ramos's report, watching his world crumble with each page. The failed investments, Arizona complaints, systematic guardianship research. She told me her business was growing. He whispered. She said we were building a future together. Alexander, your wife has been using you to get to me. This was never about protecting me. It was about saving herself from bankruptcy. My son broke down completely, sobbing as he realized the woman he had married had manipulated him into betraying his father. Dad, how could I have been so stupid I thought I was helping you? But I was destroying our family. You were manipulated by a professional. Alexander, she has done this before. The creditors have been calling me, too. He admitted through tears. I did not understand why her business debts were my problem. She kept saying it was temporary, that your assets would solve everything. She has been planning this for 8 months. Son, long before she convinced you I was declining. Alexander looked up with red, swollen eyes. Dad, I need to get away from her. But I am scared of what she might do if she realizes I know the truth. With Alexander safely in our guest bedroom and Eleanor's recordings as ammunition, I launched the most comprehensive campaign of my life, systematically destroying someone who had threatened my family. My first target was Sophia's financial lifeline, using Ramos's intelligence about her creditors. I contacted each lender personally. Mr. Vargas. I told her primary creditor, I am Robert Harlan, and Sophia has no legal access to my assets. The documents she has shown you are forgeries, and I have police reports to prove it. The effect was immediate. Vargas and other lenders froze Sophia's remaining credit lines and demanded immediate payment. Her precarious financial situation became full-scale collapse. Next, I contacted the Ohio Real Estate Commission with detailed complaints backed by Ramos's evidence of Arizona violations and current fraud. Professional licensing boards take elder abuse seriously. Sophia's license was suspended pending investigation. Meanwhile, Brooks executed the legal assault. Criminal complaints were filed: elder abuse, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft. The evidence package included Eleanor's recordings, Ramos's investigation, bank records, and medical documentation of my competency. Robert, this is one of the most comprehensive elder abuse cases I have ever seen. Brooks told me the prosecution will have everything needed for multiple felony convictions. I reached out to other elderly clients Sophia had worked with, sharing Ramos's findings about her Arizona history. 4 additional complaints were filed within days, revealing a predatory pattern. The most satisfying call was to Sophia's broker, Victoria Lang, a woman I had known through Columbus business circles. Victoria, one of your agents has been systematically defrauding my family and potentially other elderly clients, I said, providing evidence copies. Within 24 hours, Sophia was terminated from Lang Realty, her professional reputation completely destroyed. The pressure campaign worked perfectly. Sophia made increasingly desperate moves, providing more evidence. She attempted accessing my accounts with additional forged documents, not knowing Thomas Riley was flagging every inquiry. She tried emotional manipulation on Eleanor, appearing at our house with tears. Eleanor, you have to understand. I was just trying to help the family plan for the future. Robert is getting older and someone needs to look out for his interests. Eleanor, confident in her role, recorded everything. Sophia, Robert seems perfectly capable of managing his affairs. Maybe focus on your own financial problems. Sophia's shock when Eleanor revealed she knew about the debts was priceless. She realized her carefully constructed lies were unraveling completely. Sophia's final desperate gambit was pressuring Alexander to return home and fix this misunderstanding. She called repeatedly, sent threatening texts, even appeared at his workplace. She is becoming unhinged, Alexander told us after one disturbing encounter. She accused me of betraying her, said I destroyed her life. When I mentioned Arizona, she got scary, said she would make sure I regretted crossing her. That threat was the final evidence we needed. Brooks immediately filed for a restraining order and alerted police about threats against family members. The end came swiftly. Detective Lisa Grant from Columbus Police Financial Crimes Unit had been building the case for 2 weeks. They found Sophia at her former office, apparently trying to convince Victoria Lang to give her another chance. Sophia Harlan, Detective Grant announced, entering the conference room where Sophia was pleading her case. You are under arrest for elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and making terroristic threats. The arrest was witnessed by 6 real estate professionals who had known Sophia as successful. Watching her led away in handcuffs, her professional facade finally stripped away, provided unexpected satisfaction. Alexander watched news coverage that evening with mixed relief and sadness. Dad, I cannot believe I was married to someone capable of this. How did I not see who she really was? She is a professional manipulator. Son, her job was making sure you did not see the truth. As we sat in our living room, the same room where this nightmare had begun at Thanksgiving, I felt something I had not experienced in months. Complete peace. The woman who had tried to destroy our family was behind bars. My son was home and healing, and Eleanor and I had discovered we made a formidable team. The war was over, and we had won. The courtroom was packed 7 months later when Judge Margaret Ellis delivered Sophia's sentence. The case had attracted attention throughout Ohio as a sophisticated elder abuse scheme. Mrs. Harlan, Judge Ellis said, looking down with obvious disgust. You systematically targeted and manipulated an elderly man and his family for financial gain. This court sentences you to 28 months in state prison, followed by 4 years probation. The judge continued. This case will serve as precedent for how Ohio handles elder financial abuse. The evidence, including recorded confessions and documented forgery, demonstrates your calculated crimes. Sophia was ordered to pay full restitution for legal fees and damages. Alexander's divorce was finalized within weeks, made simple by her criminal conviction. The real healing took longer. Alexander rented an apartment 10 minutes away, close enough to rebuild our relationship, but far enough for independence. We started family therapy with Dr. Natalie Reed, who specialized in manipulation recovery. Alexander was as much a victim as you were. Robert, Dr. Reed explained. Sophia used sophisticated psychological techniques that would fool most people. Therapy helped Alexander recognize warning signs he had missed. How Sophia had isolated him from questioning friends. How she had gradually made him doubt his judgment while positioning herself as the expert. Dad, she convinced me that questioning your mental state showed love and concern, Alexander admitted. I thought I was being responsible. Eleanor's secret investigation became family pride. Dr. Reed called her an intuitive investigator who trusted instincts over manipulation. Our marriage grew stronger through crisis. Working against a common threat reminded us why we had fallen in love 45 years earlier. Eleanor's intelligence and courage had literally saved our family's future. Alexander found new work with a Columbus firm specializing in fraud prevention. Ironic but fitting. His manipulation experience gave him unique insights into how financial predators operate. Thanksgiving 2024 felt like stepping into an alternate universe. Same dining room, same table, but everything had changed. Alexander arrived with homemade cranberry relish, chatting enthusiastically about work. Eleanor and I exchanged knowing glances, watching our son's genuine happiness. Dad, let me help with the turkey this year, Alexander offered, taking the carving knife. Time I learned the family technique properly. Watching him carefully slice the meat using the same methodical approach my father had taught me. I felt profound completion. 3 generations of wisdom had converged. Experience had defeated manipulation. Family loyalty had overcome deception. You know what I am most grateful for, Alexander said as we sat down. Learning that getting older does not mean getting weaker. Dad, watching you outmaneuver Sophia taught me that experience is the most powerful weapon against exploitation. Eleanor raised her wineglass to family partnerships no one sees coming. As we clinked glasses around our restored table, I reflected on the most important lesson. Age does not make us vulnerable. It makes us formidable. 45 years of business experience, 45 years of marriage, and 70 years of life had given me tools no young predator could match. Looking back on this ordeal, I realized I made a crucial mistake that nearly cost me everything. I trusted blindly, without staying vigilant. Do not be like me. Do not assume that family love automatically means family loyalty. Even the people closest to you can be manipulated by desperate circumstances. Betrayal stories like mine are becoming increasingly common in America. These grandpa stories you hear are not just entertainment. They are warnings. When I share betrayal stories with other seniors, I see the same shock I felt that Thanksgiving night. Too many grandpa stories end tragically because we do not recognize the signs early enough. But here is what I have learned. God gave us wisdom through experience for a reason. The Lord blessed me with 45 years of business instincts that saved my family. And thank God for Eleanor's courage. Without her secret recordings, Sophia might have succeeded. The most important lesson from these grandpa stories is not about being suspicious of everyone. It is about trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. Age brings discernment that no young predator can anticipate. Your gray hair represents decades of learning to read people and situations. Betrayal stories teach us that experience is our greatest defense against those who would exploit us. Do not let anyone convince you that getting older means getting weaker. You have survived decades of challenges that make you formidable, not vulnerable. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs this warning. Leave a comment below about your own experiences with family manipulation. Your story could save another family. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that matter.